If you're anything like me, you're going to relate to what I'm about to say. It's really hard as business owners to take time off and go away and do things that you really enjoy doing when you know that you're not really investing in your business. You have that mindset of, well, I shouldn't really be doing this. I should be spending this money on my business, developing my business. A couple of years ago, I took a guilt-ridden weekend away down to the snow with some friends. And while we were down there, we were thinking, how cool would it be if we could get away and do this more often, but do it in a way that was adding value to our businesses? Anyway, we returned back to Sydney and I couldn't shake this idea and I started brainstorming. And as a result, I put together a program which we've called Ski and Learn. We had the first one in 2016 over in Wanaka, New Zealand, where we took a bunch of SiteShed listeners across to Wanaka, and we skied during the day, and then we did some business workshop stuff in the afternoon. It was a fantastic initiative. The bunch of guys from all over Australia came to that, and it was a really cool way that we could justify, I suppose, for ourselves as a business expense, traveling to a great ski location, learning something that we can implement into our business and ski some of these really cool slopes. In 2018, we're going to be running the second Ski and Learn program. This time it's going to be in Hakuba, Japan. Now, I warn you guys, tickets are filling up really quick for this, and we can only take so many, obviously, due to hotel logistics and everything like that. So if you are interested in a ski trip, which is a business tax deduction, you can head across to the siteshed.com/events, or you can get to it from the homepage as well. Jump on the landing page there and secure your position. They are filling up quick. I reckon within 2 weeks, they'll be gone. So I hope to see you on the trip. And if you've got any questions, you can reach out to us through that page. Hello listeners, and welcome back to the third and final episode of the three-part series that I'm conducting with Mr. Al Levy, the Seven Power Contractor. The series name is The Ultimate Blueprint to Finding, Training and Retaining A-Level Staff, and this episode is called Retaining Your A-Team. Now, if you missed the first two episodes, make sure that you go back and check them out. The first one is called Recruiting Your A-Team. The second one is called Onboarding and Training Your A-Team. And as always, we've designed this series so that each episode stems into the previous. So make sure that you do check that out. They're all excellent episodes, and they have come basically as a result of what our amazing Facebook group has been asking for. A lot of people are having issues with staff and keeping staff, and that series has been put together more or less as a way to answer some of the questions that have been going around in that group. Now, if you are not in that group, you can head across to Facebook and just type in the search bar there, The Site Shed, and you'll see the page and the group. You can join both. The group is where most of the discussions happen, so just request to join and Talia will let you in at some point. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in there. Anyway, let's jump right into part 3 of this series. If you're enjoying it, please let me know. Leave us a review in iTunes. That'd be great. And why not share it with someone? Thank you. The SiteShed podcast is made possible because of Tradie Web Guys, creators of beautiful websites designed specifically for tradies and contractors. If you're tired of dealing with web designers that have no idea about your industry, then head across to tradiewebguys.com.au and reach out. Like many companies from all over the place, you'll be very glad you did.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the SiteShed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello listeners, and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the SiteShed podcast. Thank you once again for sharing your earbuds with me. You're joining us today for the third and final episode of The Ultimate Blueprint to Finding, Training and Retaining A-Level Staff with the man himself, Mr. Al Levy. Al, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me back again. Really excited. This is the big thing, staffing power. We love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the listeners out there, if you missed the first two episodes, make sure you go back and check them out because this one is designed to stem perfectly into it. The first episode, we spoke about recruiting your A-team, where Al gave us some golden nuggets on the recruiting front, or everything from, marketing towards the right people and to making sure you're having the right conversations with them in the initial stages. In the second episode, we spoke about onboarding and training your A-team, and that was a pretty solid episode, really about staff orientation and making sure that when you're bringing somebody in as a new staff member, you're giving them the best possible chance to succeed and taking responsibility for it if they don't. That was, and in this episode, we're talking about retention. So we're going to talk a little bit, Al, I think, about how to training staff, some of the processes around training, and then, of course, as a result, how to keep them as staff members. I know a lot of the people that I speak with through our community and whatnot, a lot of them have had the feedback with, in relation to staff just jumping ship because they're getting offered an extra $5 from somebody else or all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
I mean, I'm guessing it's pretty common around the globe, right?
It's pretty common, and it's not new.
Right.
Not new at all. And that goes back to the labor pool. So I've got a lot of good input on this that I want to be able to share with our listeners today.
Oh, I'm sure you do. So for the listeners as well who are new to the show, Al's been on a number of times. I'm going to post some links to the previous shows in there. And if you want to find out more about Al and his story, you can head across to the first episode, which is where we spoke about, it was From A to B with Al Levy, episode 46. And it was really cool outcomes from a plumbing background himself in the Big Apple. So, he's got a pretty awesome story about some of the, I suppose, the obstacles that you had to overcome to get where you are today, right?
Yes, I have all the scars to prove I've been out there. So, yeah. Plumbing, heating, and air conditioning was the main thing that we did. And now today, I'm pleased to say I've been out of the company for a while, and they do electrical. And because once you master some of these habits, whatever trades you do, it becomes pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
But this training and retaining are really married at the hip. Right. It's like two sides of the coin, if you will. You can't really separate the two. So you've done a phenomenal job of recruiting. Yep. You did a great job of hiring. You've taken this orientation part really well. So what's next? Are we done?
Yep.
No, because you promised me a career. So wherever I am on the organizational chart, now the training begins about how do I do it the Matt Jones way of plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical. Because I may have worked wherever I worked. It was okay to leave the toilet seat on the floor and never install it, or whatever crazy thing that it is. They don't know how to do your stuff. So you creating systems and documenting, but then, of course, going someplace, preferably not in the customer's house, but training them so that you can train them your way and fix the mistakes in-house, which is a whole lot less expensive than trying to find it later on in the field and fix it. So training is something that's an ongoing process.
Al, and this is relevant to everybody in the organization, correct?
It is relevant to everyone in the organization, which is a great thing. So in our company, the more manuals you held, the more chapters, and the more that you could do, the more money you made. Right. So if you could answer the phone and dispatch and in emergency do AR and AP, so you had a manual for everything and you had been trained on that, you are worth more because you can do more.
Right.
And the same thing goes with a technician who can do all types of plumbing, all types of heating, all types of cooling, all types of electrical, or if you're a roofer, they can do every type of roofing that you do, including roofing service and roofing install. You're worth more money. Yep. Or a cabinetry guy, or any of other ways that you break it up. But the point being is that they need to be trained and verified that they know how to do the work your way. And the better your systems are, and the better your documented procedures for this, like manuals, and having training program and formalized training, that's really it. Now, it's funny because Matt and I were talking before we came on, is that we both speak. What I told Matt is years ago, that one of my biggest challenges in the training process was we could find people that knew their subject, like incredibly knew their subject. The bad news is they were awful speakers and you would be asleep when they would talk. So unless you know how to learn something in your sleep, that's bad.
Yeah.
The second worst thing is, and you guys, I bet, have always, if you let your supplier do all your education, they'll come in and they'll put on a really ritzy, good looking show and, be able to be funny or talk and, engage. But God forbid you ask them a question that has any depth to it. They have no clue about what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. So the rarest and hardest thing in training was for us to continually find people who were not only just knowing their subject, but were also great trainers, great communicators. And ultimately, what happened was we couldn't continually find that. So we ourselves took it on ourselves. We created our own hands-on training center, our own training curriculum that was built off the manuals, and we went to school to learn how to become really good trainers. It is a skill like every other skill It is totally learnable.
Yeah.
But you have to be committed to that because nobody can do a better job of training than you at your own company. I promise you that.
So, Al, what does that actually look like? I mean, we're talking about training here. I mean, I know that you know, in the previous episode, you were talking about when you're onboarding staff, have them, you know, go around with the person that you'd ideally like to duplicate so they can learn the ways. But is there, I'm guessing at some point, you know, they, in order to say they've achieved X, Y, and Z, they kind of need to be able to look at something in paper and say, okay, well, I can officially do that.
Yes. So in most software today, almost every software in the business has a toggle. So you demonstrate to me that you can do a task. I go into the software and I click it into an on position. That now means those calls can be dispatched to you, Matt.
I'm gotcha.
So there's ways. That's the greatest way to do it. We did it years ago where we had a template where we trained the dispatchers about what Matt could do, what Al could do, what Bob could do, you know, and so that they would know what they could do in the way of dispatching.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know, you can take them into the training center and make them do the tasks. And if you don't have a training center, you could go to your own home, your cousin's home, your friend's home, bring them a beer and use their own place and run these calls with them so that they can prove to you they can do it in front of you. Because until they do it, this was called the tell me, show me. Remember we talked about this a while back? Which is you don't know what I know until I do one of two things. I tell you in a way that's convincing. So if Matt asks me, Al, can you do a toilet reset? And I nod my head, you don't know that I know. But if Matt says to me, Al, give me the first 5 things you would do on a toilet reset. And I say something like, well, I would inspect the toilet to make sure it's good enough to turn over and repair. I would explain to the customer about the cost of this versus doing a new toilet. And then I would, if they gave the approval and signed, then I would find a padding for it, drain the water, shut it down, be ready to get the stuff. And now you have a feeling that I know what I'm talking about, right? Or we could go to a toilet because there's a toilet someplace and we could actually do this, right? And that is what I'm speaking to. And the same thing goes for the office, which is, okay, I want you to do the bank deposits today. And here's the accounts payable process. And I want you to do show me the first 5 steps of how to get the bank deposits prepared. Yeah. Or record a phone call. I want you to run through the process about explain to a customer, how do they handle an objection if they want to get a price over the phone? All of everything I'm talking about for every box on the org chart. You can totally do this.
And so would it be, when we're talking training, would it be a specific time locked into a calendar where you would sit down with staff member A and train them on X, Y, Z? Is that how it works?
Yes. So here's how it works is in the companies that I work with, hang on everybody, because I've already spent a lot of your time and money and I know you're going to want to hear this. You have to have at your company, once you have resources, everybody at your company is in a meeting, a short meeting every week. And what is going on in that meeting every week? Talking about how you answer your phones, how you dispatch, how you do your AR, how you do your AP, accounts receivable, accounts payable, how you, as a tech, are supposed to perform, or whatever the actual trades that you do. Those are the things that you're discussing every week. So I always use this analogy, I tell people in America, when you learn to drive, you have to do this. Your hands are on the wheel 10 to 2, and you're supposed to check your mirror every 5 seconds. Well, by the time you're 30 years old, you couldn't even get out of your driveway doing that if you tried. And the reason why is because you drive every day, right? Right. That's why you don't have to practice. But there's this insanity is we don't do the same thing in our own business, which is every day we're answering phone calls, every day we're dispatching, every day we're entering bills, every day we're paying bills, every day we're running to the job and we have a process to go through the job and there's a sales process and there's a diagnostic process and there's the actual doing the work process. But we don't have it the same thing where we're going through it week after week to get really good at it and find ways to do it better, cheaper, and faster. That's what I'm advocating.
Is that not, though, sometimes the crux of the problem, Al? Like, I know in the past I've worked with companies to help them, implement systems and processes into the operations that are seemingly located within their head. It's intellectual knowledge, and we're trying to turn it into intellectual property by documenting it. But that seems to be often the problem. Like, it's in their head and they know it so well that it's hard for them to get it out of their head and put it on paper.
Yes. What I would really love, and every one of you out there would really love, is you would love to have a team of people that are expert at reading your mind. And how do I know? Because that's what I really wanted. And the second thing I wanted, I wanted the power of cloning.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to clone myself and have people that would automatically, so I would never have to talk to them, and they would have the same work ethic as me. Okay, well, two things are never happening in your lives, my friends. You're not going to find mind readers, and you're not going to be able to clone anytime soon.
Thank God.
So you have to document what's in your head, because it is patently unfair to everybody who's at your company who wants to do a good job, but you never define what good enough is. And it's not this big, long process. The policies and procedures in my nothing's longer than a page, Matt. Every one of them, nothing's longer than a page.
Right.
If you write down right now, everybody out there, if you write down 5 bullets on how I should answer the phone, or 5 bullets about how I should get to the house the right way and open the call, or whatever you write, it automatically beats anything and everything you've never documented. I'm telling you right now, if you had 5 pages versus 0 pages, you win.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But this other part about meetings.
Let's talk about meetings.
Meetings are so critical. Even my dad intuitively understood that, the people who think they're too busy for meetings are the ones that need to get to a meeting the most.
Right.
Which is so counterintuitive. Oh, I got all this work. I got to get out there. So the story I like to share is I spent $100,000 of my family's money in the 1990s, which, of course, I got their permission. And we paid it off in 2 years, by the way.
Nice disclaimer.
Yes, I got their permission. They didn't just say, what's this charge on the bill here? Yeah. So 2 years, we paid it all off. But the point of it is, so I have all these manuals. I'm running this weekly meeting about the manuals and the training. And picture this, I'm in the front of the room and everybody's looking at me. And in the back of the room, my brother Marty, who's the financial guy, opens up the door just a crack and he taps his watch. He's tapping his watch.
Right.
And then he walks out. And then I finish up the meeting and I grab my brother and take him outside. And I said, don't you ever do that again.
Yeah.
We just spent $100,000. Here's what I know. Every time I have a meeting, here's what happens. The sales go up, callbacks go down, and we make more money. What do you have that's more important than my meeting time with them?
Yeah.
Because every time I finish the meeting, and that is what I'm sharing with you today.
Yeah.
Now, if your meetings are bad meetings, I do have meeting guidelines. And Matt, you know that. There's a meeting guideline.
What's the meeting guideline?
Meeting guidelines, there's 10 things that to do to run good meetings. So most guys don't have meetings, Matt, on a regular basis. When do they have a meeting? Because you have finally ticked me off. You know what? So we get into a meeting now, and I have a list of an agenda that's 10 miles long. And you guys don't pick up after yourselves, you don't finish, and you don't call the office at that time. And we just have this whole rambling thing. And now all the guys are in the room and they're just going, well, this has got nothing to me. Yeah. I do the work perfectly. It's Matt doesn't do the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that is not what I'm talking about. And I'm not talking about meetings that are like the meetings you have at your community, at your house of worship, where you just go to eat donuts. That is not what I'm talking about. These meetings are about, this is how we answer the phone, this is how we dispatch, this is how we do AR, this is how we do AP, this is how we run when we get to a call, this is the sales process. These are the 3 questions you ask when you get to the door. That's what those meetings are about.
So the meetings are like it's obviously structured, because I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of meetings for the reasons that you just outlined.
And you are rightfully so, because if you are running bad meetings, and they are here are the 2 things. Long meetings with no agenda, or agenda that's just too big, is not worth the time.
Yep.
What I am talking about is short, frequent meetings that have a very short, tight agenda.
Okay.
Is that coming home? Because those are meetings that are indispensable.
Okay. Interesting.
But they are short, tight. So people come to your meeting, Matt, and they know the 3 things we're talking about today.
Got it.
And nothing else.
Okay. So they've basically been prepped for that meeting before they come into it, knowing that
That's
it's going to be okay.
Don't hit them with a 2x4 when they're walking in the meeting because they don't know what's coming. Yes. And if you do that, and so there's a start time, there's an end time. There are a lot of good meeting guideline habits that I talk about how to run a good meeting. But first and foremost is short, frequent meetings beat long, rambling, useless meetings.
So, Al, what's all this got to do with retention?
So here's the great part about this. What I found out, and I would love to tell you that I knew this, I did not. I found it out, which is the better I recruit, the better I hire, the better I orient, and the better I train and give them what I said, which is a career versus a job, the likelihood of them leaving me is becoming negligible. And how do I know? Because there was a time in New York where there was just money on Wall Street that was just flying in every direction. And people were no longer asking me, Matt, how much. They asked me how soon, my customers.
Yeah, right.
So people were just trying to pirate away my staff left and right, calling with headhunters because they knew these were the best trained guys. And I rarely lost anybody. And they were offered the $5, $10 higher positions. They didn't want to go. So why is that?
Yeah.
Because they knew they had a career with me. They knew the people that were willing to pay a little bit extra wouldn't put one penny into them once they arrived. They were then stuck.
Yeah.
And I offered and I created a hub and spoke approach, which allowed to offer up different shops. Like we were kidding around about how awful the traffic is. People knew that we could grow this company as big as they wanted to go and grow. Why would you leave this ship?
Yeah, it's such an interesting paradigm, isn't it? When you're offering somebody, that. I mean, I've never been offered a job that had really like a clear path of where you could potentially be, and I think that was probably the difference between jumping ship and every time. Just you feel
Absolutely.
like eventually you feel like you're at a dead end.
And it's your promise to me, and the reality of it is that you are helping me move up the ladder every step of the way. Now, because I took young, willing people, by the time they were there 5 or 10 years, they felt fully invested in this company. And part of this goes to, what are you offering beyond a paycheck?
Right.
Because what I speak about, and we did this thing about a family business, Matt, even if it's not family relations, every business functions like a family.
Yeah.
There's a mom, there's a dad, there's a brother, there's a sister. Most of us, none of us, I'm going to say between none and most of us didn't grow up in this ideal family, loving, supporting, everything you do kind of thing. We've had a rough and tumble existence. And, functional family is kind of a term that we never heard. So a lot of us go to work to belong to a family. And
Yeah.
now the question is, what kind of family is your thing? Do you love for me? Do you care for me? That doesn't mean you let me get away. Actually holding me accountable and calling me to my higher self to be as good as I can be is, believe it or not, a retention tool. The right stuff people want and love that.
Yeah, okay.
And they will stay in.
I suppose that's true though, isn't it? I mean, if you've always got, if you always feel like you're improving, professionally and personally, then you're always striving for something, whereas if you're on the flip side, you could just be stale and stagnant. What's that old saying? You're either green and growing or ripe and rotting.
I like that. Yeah. And to me, you're either pushing the rock up the hill or the rock's falling back down on you. There's no in between. And so, there is another quirky, funny part of this whole thing, which is when I took young, willing people and provided them skills, they are grateful. That doesn't mean that they will not ever go. Nobody's an indentured slave. But they are appreciative of that. And they actually look forward to the opportunity of mentoring new people and giving them a path forward, which actually propels their own career further up. So it's a kind of weird, funny, loving, family supporting thing. And they get to love that. And it's another reason to stay in the game. Now, yes, it is up to you. Can you license? Can you franchise? Can you expand to new areas? It will challenge you to keep the game going, that you don't stall out. It's more you than them.
I think as well, the beauty, I've worked in organizations, and I've even got colleagues and friends and stuff that have been in situations where they're so reluctant to train people with the fear of them replacing them. However, I feel like when there's an organizational chart in place and they can see by training someone to fill that role, it enables them to move up to the next stage, then it kind of takes that argument away.
Yes. And in my own company, look, it was a union shop, and I sat in their chair before I sat in my chair. And I said, well, if I was them, what would I be thinking? And right away, I brought up that objection. I'm good at sales. And I just said to them, I said, look, I'm going to bring on young people, and you are right to think that maybe someday they'll take your job. Or you can think that these people coming on board allows us to create field supervisors and new shops and new rest of the stuff, which is really how you should be thinking.
Right.
So you're helping them get better, helps you go. And they fortunately embrace that.
Awesome. Well, look, mate, I think we're pretty much getting to the end of this series. Is there anything that you Anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yes, I want to make it clear that this isn't, I have to be a big company to do what Al is talking.
Right.
Because I have done this, Matt. Like I said, one of the people I worked with in California, it was me and him at his dining room table, his wife who was playing with the grandchildren in the next room. And today there are like 8 people, he has 8 technicians working for him. And he is following everything I'm telling you guys about, which is getting proactive on the recruiting, hiring, orienting, training, and then that will indeed put you towards the retaining path. And you have to be working it.
Yeah,
you have to be working it.
So, Al, just before we wrap this up, sorry for the technical issue there. Of course, every time you want to record, the neighbours want to all leaf blow their gardens and mow their lawns. But anyway, that's the way it is. That's podcasting for you.
Yep. When I come to Australia, I'm going to come to your house with a leaf blower. That's what I'm going to bring with me.
Yeah, good.
Now that I know it's okay.
Needs some attention. So we had a question here from Adam, and Adam asked, how could he improve control over his workers? And also, how would you recommend dealing with builders in terms of being paid on time, as I mostly contract fixed price work for project builders?
So what I would say is that, you have my greatest empathy and my sympathy because you are classically stuck in the middle. And builders are good people. This is not an assault on them. But the only way they can make money is they are working for the end user who wants a good price. And so they have to keep your price down. So that really squeezes your margins. And going into it, you need to know that.
Yeah.
If you do something special that's only that you can do a niche, you might be able to squeeze some more money out of it. But it really demands, even for you, that much more that you have to be super efficient. You have no room for costly mistakes and errors and things of that nature. One of the things you asked about pay that I got it was years ago when I would do these things, they didn't care, the builder, that I had cut holes for my pipes to run that the electrician filled. Until I realized they don't care until I make them care. So I told the builder, I have extra money in this job that if I can bring it in on time, you'll be happy. Plus, I'm going to give you a rebate back. But I do need you to protect and make sure that nobody gets in my way. Well, guess who then protected that when I made the holes and painted them,
right,
that they weren't clogged up. So you got to make the builder your friend and have a vested interest in their best interest. You cannot penalize them with change orders and all of the other things. You got to figure it up in the front of the price and get them to help you bring this thing in on time. And then I would break up your payments so that you always have a little money coming in. So you need objective benchmarks. So when we show up, it's this much. And when we set the roughing, it's this much. And when we get the permit, it's this much. So you have a whole bunch of little payments. And if it's never coming, then you know at least, well, okay, I know what I'm exposed for and I'm out.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I got to wait for the next payment. That's the best advice I can do. As to your workers, the more you take photos of how you do your jobs.
Yeah.
Because they're more alike than they're unalike. And that would be the best way to get control of your employees. Again, documentation, photos, as well as words are a really good way to do that.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think we've pretty much covered to a degree how to control inverted commas employees with this series. I mean, we talked about how to onboard them right, how to retain them and train them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that should more or less answer his question.
Excellent.
All right, Al. Well, look, thank you very much. That draws a conclusion to the ultimate blueprint to finding, training, and retaining A-level staff. That was the third episode where we were talking about retaining your A-team. We spoke about in the second episode onboarding and training your A-team, and in the first episode we spoke about recruiting your A-team. Mate, I want to thank you once again for joining us on the show. It's always a pleasure, and I always leave more intelligent.
That is a great term. I'm going to steal that one, Matt.
No, you can have that.
Intelligent. Thank you. It was always a pleasure to share with the audience. Thanks for the time and the opportunity.
Absolutely. And listeners, once again, Al has very generously offered up a cheat sheet for the 7 Power Contractor, which runs through a lot of the principles there, takes you through a bit more of a practical example of what we've spoken about. So make sure you head across to the show notes where you can get that right now. And of course, there's also going to be in there a copy of the first chapter of Al's book, The 7 Power Contractor. It's a great read, so make sure you get across there and get a copy of that as well. Al, where can people find you?
The best place is at the number 7powercontractor.com.
Perfect.
7powercontractor.com.
All right. Well, there'll be links to that in the show notes. So, yeah, thanks again for your time. And we look forward to chatting to you again in the future. And that is a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.